just to let you know, this recording will be shared globally on our YouTube channel. So if you do switch your camera on, please bear in mind you will be recorded and your image will be shared. Equally, I am happy to take any questions from you during the session. So you can unmute and speak with me, but just remember that will be recorded. If you prefer not to do that, I've already placed a welcome in the conversation, which is on the meeting bar. That's like a speech bubble. And you're welcome to pop any questions you have in there, and I'll do my best to answer them, and I'll come back and check on them periodically. Right, let's get started. So today we are going to cover a couple of things. The first is to say we're really proud to be working with Microsoft on these events. So one of the things we'd like to offer you is the ability not just to understand more about how to use Sway across the entire school and the impact it might have. We will also like to offer you the chance to become a Microsoft Innovative Educator, or what's called a certified MIE. So at the end of today's session, I will give you a code to redeem, and you will need to go to something called the Microsoft Education Center, and that's on screen now in the picture of that computer. In the top right-hand corner, there's a little sign in button. If you've signed in there before, then great, you can sign back in and you'll be able to redeem the code there at the end. If you haven't ever visited, I would suggest going over there now. We'll just pause for a little bit at the beginning. Navigate over on a web browser to Microsoft Education Center. If you put that into your search engine, you'll arrive at the page looking like that, and just sign yourself in ready. So we'll just take 1 minute to begin. Okay, so as you go through this afternoon, we are bound to get questions of where on earth can I get all these resources? Well, the Microsoft Education Center is the place to pick them up. Once you're logged in, not only will you be able to redeem the code today, but you'll also be able to find courses there about Sway, not just getting started, but how to take it to the next step. Those Sway courses we'll highlight at the end of this session, but additionally I will show you once you're logged into Sway that you can pick up resources from within there. You can also pick up guides from within there. So as I said, this afternoon we'll give you the equivalent of 1,000 points. So by the end of today you will be an MIE, as it says on the left hand side of that screen, so it saves you some time, and we all appreciate that workloads are quite high. We also have another course running alongside this called Microsoft Innovative Educator Experts, and any of you are welcome to hop into there if you wish. It's the next phase of your personal development after becoming an MIE, and if you find that actually technology is having a really positive impact in your classroom or within your role in the school, it can be somewhere else to go to find like-minded people that are all striving to bring about that positive change in digital transformation. That can lead on to all sorts of places, such as becoming a trainer and working in some outreach capacity across local schools, or going to larger events such as the Microsoft E2 event last week, where there were people getting together from around the world looking at how technology is having a positive impact in their lives. So back to this afternoon. With Sway itself, we will look at exactly what it is, and then we'll consider how we can make presentations in Sway for different audiences. We'll look at how we then construct it and piece it together, but also how we can change the format and the layout. And then finally, we'll look at the element of being able to share and also collaborate, because it doesn't mean anymore that you've got to have separate documents. You can work in them single document together. Throughout the session, I'll have various pause points, and you can then ask me questions that are relevant to the piece we've just covered. First of all, I would say Sways are a great way of mixing things up a bit, and we tend to get stuck in the world of PowerPoint, and because it's been around forever, that's our default go-to when we're making presentations, but it doesn't have to be that way anymore, and Sway is another one of those tools that you could use. I was previously a teacher, and I've used it really successfully in the classroom with pupils in primary schools and also secondary schools with students there. And universally, people have found it quite an easy thing to get into after about an hour of going into it without any guidance whatsoever. So today you're going to be off to a flying start with us looking at just how the software works. You make things called storylines, and then you add your storylines together using cards. You can change the layer and the way that a sway flows. It doesn't have to flow vertically in a linear manual. You can change it to go in any direction really, and you can also get a sway out of the sway software, and you can save it and you can share it and send it to somebody, or you can upload it into other applications. Let's swap over and we will jump into a sway itself. I'm just going to swap screens. That's a good afternoon there. It's nice to see you all along here this afternoon. There's people that have commented in there and those that are here on the call anyway. Just moving over now to Office 365 itself. You can get the Sway app and you can pick it up from the Microsoft Store, and it will install on a Windows 10 computer. I'm afraid it won't install on anything else but a Windows 10 operating system, but it will install on there. And you would sign into that just the way you normally would sign into Office 365 itself. That's using your school email address and your password, and then you can edit using the software on your computer, or as we're going to do this afternoon, you can use the web version. So I'm here on the Office 365 landing page, and I could scroll down the side and I can find the Sway icon, and I can click on that and I can open it there, or I can go to the app launcher and Sway is in there. If it isn't in the top of your list, all you'll need to do is go to all apps, and then all the Office 365 apps are listed there alphabetically, and you can just scroll down to S and pick up Sway. Once you've clicked on Sway, it will bring you to one of two Sway landing pages. This is really meant to get you a quick start so you can jump into your work and not have to worry about making too many choices. So across the top is a very quick, well, do I want to start a new document, either from a blank? I've got a document that I've saved previously, maybe it's saved locally on your computer, and I just want to bring it in, a bit like you would open up any document, whether it was Word or Excel or PowerPoint. Or you can think, well, is there a more appropriate template to start from? If you want to see a few more, there's some highlighted templates in there. It's not the whole list of templates, but there's some frequently used ones. Also down the bottom, you can see here I've got recently opened Sway, so I can jump back into them. If I've got anything that's really important to me, I might work in part of the admin team in the school office. You know, every week I write the newsletter, so I may want to just pin that. And if I do want to do that, I can press the three dots on the end, click add to pins, and then this pins tab here will contain all my frequently used Sways. So if I haven't used it for a month or something, it happens to have dropped off the bottom of the list, I can just go back to my pins tab and pick it up from there. Down the bottom here, depending on season or events that might be happening globally, Microsoft will promote Sway templates that it thinks are topical, and you can pick them up from there, but you don't have to use those. You can start and build from scratch. And today, that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to press New Blank Sway. It will open up yet another tab in my web browser, so I can still go back to the tab I was previously on. It's sat there, or over here in my second tab, I've now got my editor for Sway. If you want to get out of the editor, you can go back and swap tabs and go back to the view you started on when you came from the Office 365 app launcher. But you could also click the Sway name on the top left-hand corner here, and when you click that name, you'll get to the second Sway landing page. Can be a bit confusing at first, the fact you've got two Sway landing pages. This is the initial one, and this is the second one, which you're going to navigate in and out of. You'll spend more time on this one than you will on the other one. A lot of the options here are mirrored from the other one, such as create a new Sway, or start from a topic, or there, upload a document and begin editing from a document you've had before. Here are all my Sways that I've edited recently, so you can see them all stacked up there, so I can quickly get back to them. If I viewed somebody else's Sway, because collaboration is really easy, they would appear over here. It will also give me a nice little analytics dashboard of just how long I've spent using different sways. And the more you use the platform, the better the analytics gets. And anything you've deleted recently will be sat over here in your recycle bin. And unless you decide to do it manually, they will also delete after 30 days. But you can tick them and you can highlight them there, and you can get rid of them if they're beginning to clutter things up. You could also restore them, and that'll put them back to exactly where it came from. If I jump back over to my edited list and I scroll down a bit further, here is where you'll find a bigger selection of templates. So unlike here where it's quite limited, and even if you go to more templates, there's only a few, you'll get the full library of templates here. And if you are going to be maybe, as I said, in the admin team, you just want to start a newsletter, it's your very first time of coming to get Sway, you might want to start from a template newsletter and amend that rather than begin from a blank canvas. But just to show you today what can be achieved, we are going to begin from that blank starting point. So I'm going to open back up to my empty blank Sway, and we go here. So this view, as we call it, is called the storyline, and my storyline will stack up vertically from the top moving to the bottom. The other new term I'm going to use in here are these rectangles are called cards, and you create a Sway by adding cards to your storyline, and the more cards you have, the longer your storyline, the less cards you have, the shorter your storyline. So if I wanted my title, and let's say here I might have started a science club, so in here my science club, and let's say we're going to call it for summer term. I'm going to get things ready ahead of sharing this with the pupils. So in there is my science club, and just like a normal text editor, I've got various formatting options along the top, and this is my header. So I could highlight it and say, look, I want it to be emphasized, same as bold. Accent is the same as italics, so I may not want that, but I can choose how I want to have my text formatted. I could insert a link. Maybe we've also got a science club page on our website, and we might want to have the website link directly in my Sway. We could do that there as well. On a header, you can break things down to add separate backgrounds. You could add in a logo, or you can press the button and collapse that and bring everything together. So it's tucked away neatly inside there. If I wanted to bring in a background, it might be here that I want a background called science. So let's see what that brings me. You'll notice by just clicking there, one of the other great things, especially when you're using this in class, is that you don't need to have another tab open in the web browser. And more importantly, from an e-safety perspective, when you're teaching, it keeps pupils here in the same application, and you can search for your pictures exactly here. It will make some suggested search terms based on what you've already entered into your card, or you can overrule that and you can enter that in there. So let's type in science club, and I'm going to hit search. It will now use Bing, which is Microsoft's search engine. It will have a look online and see if it can find some suitable images for Science Club. Now, it isn't always the picture you want, and you might have to refine your search term, but you can go and have a look. And it means that you haven't got to open up yet another tab and search in another window, and they might get distracted. Here, it brings more of a focus, and it means it's just all in one place. So I'm going to say I'm going to choose that one and go to add, and it's instantly put that picture in there, and it's beginning to look like my Sway is building up really nicely, and we can just continue down. So I could change the focus in that picture, and if I want to change the focus point, I can have where the image starts and scans from as the Sway moves, and I can move that around. But at the moment, I haven't even had a chance to view my Sway, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. So I'm just going to leave the focus where it is, but you can change focus points. So if you want to start on a particular pupil and then pan out to show the wider table, all of that is possible. By default, Sway will look at the picture and it will try to use a computer algorithm to pick which is the best way to move with the focus, but you ultimately have control at the end. The other thing with Sway is, unlike PowerPoint, it will make a lot of those choices for you. So you can do things like format text and change backgrounds and so forth, but Sway is designed to try and save you time and reduce workloads, and it will apply what it thinks is the best fit for what you're building. Yes, you can go back and change those individually, but a lot of the time I don't bother, and there's other ways to remix things, and we'll show you how to remix in a middle. Press plus, and you will get options for a new card to join underneath the heading card, which you have there by default. It will give you some suggestions. So you could have another heading, you could have a text box, image, and so forth, but you've also got the ability to ignore the suggestions and move past them. And you can choose what type of text box you would like. If you've added a heading 1, you can get a heading 2. That we haven't added a heading 1 at the moment, so that would adjust itself. You've also got the ability to add media-rich content. Unlike other presentation platforms, it's really easy to also get that in there. So you can have still images, as you've already seen. You can go and pick those up from a search engine here inside of Sway. You can add in videos, and we'll do one of those in a little bit. You can put recordings in, and those could be audio recordings that your pupils have made, and then you're going to upload them into the Sway, or it might be an audio recording you've got from another source. You can embed code from other websites, or you can upload that media yourself and then put it inside of your Sway card. You can also have groups. So you can have, for instance, a set of pictures. You could have them so that it automatically gets grouped depending on the size of the picture, the shape of the picture, and the content. You could organize them into a table-like grid. You can have a comparison with a slider, or you can have a stack, a bit like flicking through paper photographs and putting one behind the other, or you could have a slideshow that plays. So as we go this afternoon, we'll build up and we'll use some of these media group and text options so you can see just how they behave. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a heading 1. So we've got our title, and this might be our science club members. To correct that typo there. Then I want to have another card. That's all I'm going to have on that card. And on my second card, now I've got a heading 1. I could have a heading 2. So this might be staff. And then I'm going to have another one. I have heading card 2, and that's going to be pupils. After I've got that, so they're all grouped together, I might say I would like to compare something. So if I went to group, and in fact, let's go, before we go to group, let's have another heading, and this might be new building. So we've got a new building for our science club, and then under here, we might have thanks to the funding of the PTA. Now have a room. New building, which is great. We're showcasing that to the parents that are going to be reading this newsletter. And now we would like to get some media in. Now I could just bring in a couple of images, but after a while, it's not quite as interesting as using groups. So here I might have a comparison, and that's going to have a nice little slider in it. Here I can choose 2 images to compare. So if I click the plus new image, I could upload it from my computer. Maybe I've stood there and I've taken a picture of a school camera, and I've got a picture of the new room, and it just so happens I've got a picture of the old room. I could upload, but in this case I don't. So I'm going to go to the image search again, and I'm going to say school building, and see what we get. It's going to have a look online for school buildings, and then the results should pop up here. Okay, so we'll have, let's have the old school building. We'll add that in, and we'll then go over here and we'll go to image, and we will have the new school building. I can bring that over and drop that in there. It will go in there. There we go. New school building. So we've now got our comparison card there as well. Now we're starting to build this, and these cards are stacking up, and you can see now how the storyline would form. One of the things that you will want to do very quickly is check what it looks like to the person coming to see the Sway. At the moment, we're in what's called the editor view, and this is the view that we would see as someone building the Sway, but this wouldn't be the view that someone would see at the end. So at the top, we have a play button, and when we press the play button, it will take me into the view that someone would see if they were getting sent a link to come and view our Science Club Sway. So in here, we scroll through, it's got our Science Club member staff terms, and here's our new building title, and there is the group slider, so we can slide from one building to the next, and we can compare rooms, and your slider could work exactly how you want. Now, I'm quite pleased with the way that started, so I'm going to go back to the editing tool, and I'm going to introduce you to some of the ways you can quickly improve your sways. So at the moment, we're in the storyline view, but you can go to a design view. And when you go to a design view, it then allows you to change the design, the layout of your sway itself. You can navigate to different sections quite quickly by clicking through. It allows you to check the design, but the thing that makes it really quick and intuitive to change the way that your sway works is styles. And if you go across to the right hand side where you pick up styles, and all I did was click the button there, one of the things that you can do is change the way that this scrolls. So at the moment, and by default, it will be vertical, up and down, but you could have it as a horizontal scroll, so you can move across if you prefer to share the timeline of what's going on. So I quite like that. I might leave it as horizontal, but I could have it as slides. It's more of a traditional presentation, so I move from slide to slide. But you know what? I've got PowerPoint for that, so I think I'm going to go back to having a horizontal slide rather than a vertical slide. Then down in the bottom here, I've got lots of quick application templates. And what I can do without a lot of fuss or input from me is I can choose one of these templates and it will change the whole flow of what I'm doing. So if I applied that, now it's decided to rearrange my presentation. So as I scroll across, it's moved all of my different content into different types of layout. And I didn't need to do anything. All I did was click that. If I want to, I can press undo and it will remove it. If I decided, you know what, I want to see how that looks if I use that vertically, I can change the vertical and I can click the theme on, and then yep, okay, that looks quite nice vertically, but I still think I'm going to stick with horizontal. And then if you really don't like some aspect of what you've had from the template you've picked up, you can go to customize, and when you go into customize, you can change options further still. So you could change, for instance, the color palette in here, and I don't think I'll have orange. My school colors are red, so I bring that in. I could change things like fonts. I can change the emphasis of animations as we slide through. Can change things like text size. You see in here, unlike other programs, those choices are very high level and you almost just have to go with the flow, and it's easier if you don't get too picky. If I come out of that, I've now got my new content for scrolling across, and that's instantly changed. Things like my backgrounds now look more pleasing, or my titles now stand out, and I haven't had to do a lot of work whatsoever. If I went to the play mode, in here, there's the animation of it sliding in, and there's the content going across, and a little advert at the end. So that's looking quite good. I'm quite happy with that. One last thing to show you in the styles front is you can hit the remix button, and what the remix button does, it will remix your sway at random. So this is really useful if you've got a school newsletter and it's beginning to get a bit stale. Do you know what? You just want to liven things up one particular week, where you can hit the remix button and then it will remix it automatically. May not be the remix that you want, but you can always go back, or you could always pick another template, but it allows you to have the content but quickly change the way it looks, just to keep people interested, to keep it fresh, and you haven't got to do an awful lot of work to achieve that. Before I take the first set of questions, I'm going to come out of design. I'm going to go back to storyline. There we go. So I'm back into the editor view. One of the other things that you will definitely want to do is share with others. So up on the top line here, we've got a share button. And in the share button, you've got some choices to make. You can say that you want to share it with people that are specific or in groups. And that's really good for narrowing down who can access your sway. If you want everybody in your school as an organization to be able to access them when you share the link, we'll leave it on the default option. Or if this is something that was public, maybe it's going on your website, you've checked it for content, could even be a prospectus, and I've got some schools that have started to use this for prospectus. You might select anyone with this link, but be extremely careful if you've got pictures of pupils and students or somebody you haven't got consent for outside of the school. Don't leave it on anyone can share that link if that's the case. You might want to go to specific people. And if you're going to go to specific people, you can enter their email addresses in there, and then their email addresses can define who's invited, and they will come in. Or you could leave it to anyone with your organization, and then it will pick up that you've got at turniton.co.uk in your email address, and if you don't have that in your email address, then sorry, you aren't going to be able to view this sway. So you've got various levels of control over who sees this sway. You can get things like visual links, and the visual links here, you'll be able to copy and paste those in, so you can click on those. If you want to copy that, it's quite easy. That's copied, and you could take it over and embed it into a website. You could pop it into Microsoft Teams. You could put it into a Word document, for instance. So that's what a visual link looks like. If I pop back into share, you can get an embedded code as well. So if you wanted a code, you can decide the number of pixels here wide by number of pixels high. And then that's really useful if you wanted to embed the sway into a website, for instance. And you wouldn't have to have a link to your sway. The sway could sit natively inside of your website itself, and a lot of the education website providers now will quite happily allow that level of integration as long as you've got the admin rights to the websites, or if not, you make sure that you get that over to somebody that administrates the website for the school. Down the bottom here, you've got further options. And then here is where you've got an extra layer of protection and security. Maybe this is something that you're using with pupils and you want there to be another way of stopping people getting in. So you can have a password that's required to come in and edit this way as well. The other and final thing to do with sharing is that viewers can see share buttons. If you don't want that share button visible to everybody else, then also it stops them sharing this with everyone else. Untick that button, and it means that the share button is still visible to you or anyone else that's an editor, but to anyone else that's come in here as a viewer, then sorry, they haven't got the ability to share this on again, and you stay in control of that sway that's there. So there's lots of different ways for you to be able to control the way that you're going to send this out and get people in to view your sway. If you want to collaborate with colleagues in school, instead of it being a view link, all you do is you swap over to an edit link. And now when you share that code, it invites people in to be able to co-edit and author this sway in real time. So you don't need to have several versions of the sway. You can both be, or a group of you could all be in a single sway and happily editing together. And that single sway is saving all of those changes all of the time. So you don't have to worry about where it's saving. It will just be saving in the original location. The one thing I would emphasize, and where I've seen people get caught out easily, is forgetting to switch between the edit and the view button. And I had a couple of incidents, unfortunately, of the edit link being sent to parents instead of the view link, which means they've suddenly got into the editable version and they shouldn't have. And then schools have had to go and retract that link and ask people not to use it. Be really careful. Make sure you toggle the correct button there. And most of the time it will be view, unless you've got somebody you're working with, and then it will be edit. The final bits are here on the side before I take some questions, and then we'll come back and do a bit more building. In here, that's a link out to your sways. Again, that's another way to go to create new without having to click the sway button there, then create new. If this is something you're really interested in, you can duplicate, and then once it's duplicated, it leaves the original intact, and you've got another one. Again, things that are used commonly, maybe you've got a department bulletin and you're in a secondary school and you want to just copy that from one term to the next and then update in that template you've already created. Well, the duplicate sway button is good for that. It means you haven't got to start from the beginning. It is a template used quite regularly, so it could be that this is a writing frame for English, and maybe sometimes you are going to bring pupils in here in the primary school, upper key stage 2, and they're going to do their writing inside of the sway, and you want to say this is a template, because the last thing we want is learning time lost in them faffing around with cards. Well, you could save that template and then you could share that link to pupils in another application such as Teams, and they could pick it up from there. You can print a sway. If you press the print button, it will generate a PDF, but the PDF loses all of the great elements that you get with a sway. It's meant to be engaging, it's meant to be animated, it's meant to be interesting. And if you do print it as a PDF, this is the sort of thing you get. Very locked page. None of the animations and the coloring comes through. It brings it back to bare bones. So you can get out. Maybe you're a paper person. Maybe you've got colleagues which really can't stand looking at a sway in a live environment. So they can have a copy out. But it doesn't work well to represent what the sway is going to look like in the end. Another thing that you can do is exports. If you press the export button, you can export out of here as a Word document. You can also export as a PDF if you're not printing to a PDF or printing a paper copy. So that's another way to get your content out. You've got some more settings in Sway hidden away in here, and if we click on them, it opens up another box. In here you can do things like choose the languages. So this is really good if you've got EAL pupils with you, or you've got parents that come from a wide range of languages that don't have English as their primary language. You can convert this Sway right in English and convert it into other languages. So those options are there for you on that. You can show the text direction buttons at the top. So if I ticked one of those, they're up there at the top to select from. You can choose whether you want people to co-author or not. So if this was going out to somebody maybe not in your school, you might untick co-authoring. And if you untick co-authoring, it then unlocks another set of options about whether they can print a copy off or whether they can export this way. If you really want to remain in control, you might say, look, I don't want them printing it and I don't want them exporting it either. Viewers can change the layout, or no, it's something I'm sending to parents about this science club, and show the Sway informational footer. That just means you've got information at the bottom about what this Sway is about. The autoplay can be on or off. If you switch that on, what it means is the second that somebody opens this, a countdown will begin, and then for instance here after 3 seconds, or I could drag it to be after a different amount of seconds such as 15, it will then start to work its way through the steps as if I was scrolling, and you could have it to loop or to go through once. I'm going to leave that off because I want people viewing this to be in absolute control and not for it to start to do its own thing. But if I was having this Sway on maybe an open evening and it was on a display board in the school, that is really good because then the Sway can just play through and loop around endlessly where parents are walking past and so forth. So there's a time and a place whether you want autoplay on or not. So those are Sway settings, and when you press the cross, that will bundle them back up into there and they'll save. You've got an accessibility checker for accessibility for, it could be learners in your classroom or it could be people viewing outside of here. You can choose backgrounds where the text is easy to read, size of fonts, colors of fonts. So that is an auto checker that will go through for you. You can select alternative text in there as well. And what it does is it just makes sure that this is accessible as possible. You can have an accessibility view as well. And what it does is it takes out a lot of that busyness around your Sway. It leaves in the fact that you can scroll, but it takes out all those different colors in the backgrounds. It takes out the animations and it makes it more of a static experience, but you can still scroll up and down through it. So there's different ways to control that as well. Then at the bottom, if you want to find something, you've got a finder to drill down in, and that's where you would sign out. So if I want to exit accessibility view, I'm going to come back out of there and I'm back into my normal view. So broadly speaking, they're the buttons around the outside, and that is how you start to build it. We will come back and add some more, but roughly as a pause point, you've listened for quite a while. Have you got any questions or anything you'd like to ask? And I'll also pop back over and see if there's anything in the conversation. The moment there isn't anything in the conversation, but has anybody got anything you want to unmute and ask? Otherwise, I'll go back over and add some more cards and you can see how that storyline builds. Nothing at the moment? Okay, that's not a problem. I'll pop back over to the Sway itself. So we got to the point where we had a comparison, and I could, if I wanted to, click you'll be able to see there's a card inside of a card there. So if I wanted to add more to directly follow on, I could press the plus button there, or I can click outside of my area there. And what I can do is I can add, after another break, that I can add in some different content. So again, it allows me to have suggestions. It tries to second guess what I might want to have next in the flow of my cards, or I can overrule that and bring some content in. So I'm going to say that I want a heading 1 in there, and then let's put the experiments we're going to be looking at this term. I'll add in there, and we'll just put a simple text box in. So we're going to look at making slime. We're also going to look at, let's say, edible rocks. And then finally, we're going to look at explosions. So we've got 3 things to look at this term. I do want those formatted with number bullet points. So just like you would with your text editor, that's quite easy to do. Can change the focus on this. So at the moment I've got an emphasis that's quite narrow, but I could make the emphasis wider. That also by default instantly makes the font size bigger, and you can play around with those. The easiest way at the beginning to understand how they change the view is to keep going and having a look in the play or the design tab, and flow through it, and then come back over and have a look in the storyline tab and move things around. The worst that's going to happen is you are going to take your card and you're going to delete it. You can move cards around as well. So if I decided I wanted this card to go above that card, I could drag that out, or oops, I've dragged that into the wrong place. I want to drag that down. I want to pop that back in after there. So it isn't static. You're not fixed in a particular order. It doesn't matter whatsoever. And you can see here, because I added into where that line is there at the very last card, it's put a new section in for me. And that is the experiments this term. So after experiments this term, I am now going to go to my media, and what I think I'll do is I'll pop a video in this time. So it again tries to prompt to what I'm going to have in there, but do you know what? I want to actually find one of the videos as a tease there. So let's say I'm going to look for making slime, and it's going to have a search online. This search online is something that's, again, moderated because we were inside an Office 365 for education. It will filter out, where possible, rude, inappropriate content. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's once in a blue moon that something would come up here that you should be concerned about. And I've certainly found it from a classroom perspective to be a lot safer than opening up another tab and starting to use a search engine and see the results that come back from a search engine. So I feel quite reassured by coming in and using one of these. So it might be that I'm going to use these 2 guys here. I'm going to press add, and in it will come. And this might be a preview of slime making. Great, that's in there as well. I think I might just go and preview that again and see how this is going to play. So I'm going to scroll across here. I've yet to come back and put in who my staff and pupils are. I've had a look at new building, experiments this term. There's my video embedded, and it will play. If you're using Sway inside of the school, one of the things to be mindful of, a lot of the clips pick up from YouTube, although that's not the only video platform it will be used for the internal searches. So if you've got pupils using this and they're logged in as a pupil on a school computer, and the filtering on the broadband blocks YouTube, you might need to show them what this looks like as a teacher, or find another way around it, such as you decide to let the filtering open for that lesson and then lock it down after that lesson if you've got that luxury and that cooperation with someone who's the IT tech on site. But if you're using this for external and this was going to parents, most of the time when people are viewing this at home, they don't have the same levels of filtering that you'd have in school, and therefore that video would play just fine. And that's my intended audience for this. So I'm going to come back out to the editor and have a look in there. So there we go, there's my storyline. One thing that I do think I want to change is I'm not so happy about that now being a horizontal. It's not working quite as well, so I'm going to change that by doing a vertical and see how that then works. Yeah, that now is better. So if I come back out to my storyline, I might want to go back at some point, and then in here I might want to edit and add in a picture of staff. So here, what I'm going to do now is I am going to add in another group, and what we will add is a stack of our staff. So I'm going to click on add content, and I'm going to add the image, and we're going to add some images of teachers. Let that have a little search, and we'll try and pop in a couple of pictures of our teachers. Here's our dedicated science team, and we will also have our other dedicated science team there. We'll click add. So they're in there, and they're in a stack together. And then we might want to show the pupils in a similar manner, but do you know what? Our pupils, we are going to add those in a slightly different group. So we might want to have those in a slideshow, and see what we get here. Going to have another look for some pupils. Normally, of course, you would have the pictures of your own pupils. We will pick up some pupils where we're looking at them there, and we'll have a look at some more pupils there. We'll click add on those. Right, I've got those in again, so I'm having a look on the old play. In comes the heading animation. There comes our science club members. Now I've got my stack. It looks like a set of photographs stacked up, so I can click on my stack and I can then move between them, and it's got that lovely animation. So if you've got quite a few photos, you're almost like flicking through a stack of photos. Here are my pupils in my grid, and they would stack up there. Here's my new building and my comparison, and then I'm going down for my experiments this term. There are my experiments in my text box. I've got it sat side by side, and there's my video to play, and there's the footer that I've incorporated in my video. And this is beginning to look like a really engaging way to showcase to parents what our science club might look like for the coming term. You can see with the focus there, the focus is continually panning, so you're getting an emphasis around the picture, and it's got a focus line. It will mean that for me now at the moment, the balloons have become the dominant feature by default. I might want to change that, might want to make that experiment in there, so we can change the way that the focus line pans around if you wish. As far as making your sway is concerned, you pretty much got everything available to you there in the one place, and it means that you've got your workload in one area, or you've got the pupils focusing in one area. Now, sways could be embedded into teams as well, so that they can come up in there, or you could introduce a sway tab pinned into a class team so that pupils don't have to leave their class team, and they can start to come into the sway from within inside teams as well. So sway sits quite nicely inside other applications in Office 365. It doesn't have to necessarily be open here in a separate tab. If I jump back over into the sway here, when you come to look at your different sways that you've had created, you've got other ways of controlling them out here. So you've got 3 dots in the top corner. If you want to quickly share a link, it will use the default sharing options you chose from within inside the sway. One of the things I want to emphasize here is if you don't go inside the sway and set what you want your sharing permissions to be, it will be the defaults decided by Microsoft, and it will be very open. And if you wanted this to stay safe with pupils internally, then if you click the share link and you took the default one that was given to you, it does give you a prompt there, but still people miss it, and you copy that to clipboard and maybe you pop it in a newsletter. It means that maybe people are getting into things that they shouldn't, and if your newsletter was on the school website and somebody external to the school picked that up, it might mean they're seeing pictures of images that you haven't got consent to share outside of school. Something else you can do in there is you can duplicate, or you can jump straight into the play mode and that will play. Or there you can delete, and it will give you a double yes, do you want to delete that? And if you don't, you can click out of it and it will stay there. The way that they then work is that they will build up as a library here. Unfortunately, I often get questions about, well, can I do anything with the way that they look there? You've got the button on the side. You can view them by date edited or by title, but as yet there is no way to organize these sways into folders or groups. They will just sit in a big list. So most people, after you start to use them for a while, find that by title is the best way to sift things rather than date edited, but you can always swap them around. The tutorials that I was speaking to you about can be found up here at the top. So as well as the Microsoft Education Center, which we'll direct you to again later, you can click on tutorials there. It will open up a tab, and absolutely everything we have covered this afternoon is here. You've got hyperlinks on the side for how to create, how to add the content, how to structure them, and you can scroll through. It will give you screenshots, step-by-step guides, and you'll be able to get the same help that we've got in this afternoon's video given to you in a guide that could be read. And if you've come along on behalf of your school this afternoon, the tutorials are also, as well as the Microsoft Education Center, another very useful place to give people that additional bit of support when they're getting started with Sways at the beginning. I'm always amazed if I introduce this to the pupils that I'm working with or students, they pick it up so quickly. As I said at the beginning, normally in less than an hour, they are into it and they've got some really pleasing content. Another great thing about the classroom is they can focus on the content and they don't have to worry about the building like you would with a PowerPoint. So if I went back into my summer club newsletter and I go back to design and I was going to styles, within a few minutes they've popped their content in and then they're quickly remixing it. And what you don't get is huge amounts of time with them having to go in traditional presentation methods slide by slide. The emphasis is on the content then, and you being able to circulate around the classroom and work with them in a hybrid learning situation if you haven't got them all back with you at the moment, and really focus on the quality of the work, the depth of the explanation, rather than trying to make it look pretty, because the Sway takes care of all of that for you, and it's not something you have to think about in a big way. So this afternoon, that was our dive into using Sway in the classroom, but beyond that, using Sway across the school. It's not limited to the classroom. I'm going to come across and pick up any final questions before I start sharing the MEC code with you and showing you where to go into the Microsoft Education Center. I can see I've got a question there for you. Where is the link to download the Sway from in the Windows 10? You need to go to the Microsoft Education Store. It looks like a little white shopping bag with a Microsoft flag on it. Normally you can find that by pressing the start menu and then scrolling down the start menu, and you can go down to store, and then under store you should be able to go and pick up the Microsoft Store, or you can just search from there, and then in the Microsoft Store it's free. You can pick up the Sway app and you can install it on your computer, providing you haven't got any restrictions set by the administrator or the people that manages your teacher computers in your school. If that is the case, you might need to raise a support ticket and have that installed for you. It all depends on how they're managed and what options you've got available to you. No problems at all. Any other questions around how to build those Sways, edit those Sways, anything to do with adjusting the content of the Sway? All right, we'll swap back over to the presentation. Just syncing through, appears to be a little bit of a delay. Okay. So we will bring you back to the Microsoft Education Center. If you're joining us on the video afterwards, you can still use this code. It will remain live for a while. Once you're logged into the Education Center, instead of it saying sign in, you'll see your initials for your account. You click your initials and it will open up a menu, and you come to a little box that has your profile settings, but the box you're looking for says redeem achievement code. You'll get a pop-up window, and then the achievement code in the blue box above can be entered into that window, and you'll be able to redeem it. And then once it's redeemed, you'll be awarded the status of being a certified MIE, and you'll have the equivalent of doing 2 500-point courses by joining today's training session. Because we're a Microsoft partner, we can just award that to you today. So I'll pop back to the previous screen so that you can get a copy of that and you can enter that in. While you're doing that, has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask? I'll also pop that code into the conversation as well, just so you can copy and paste it if any of you are trying to read it from the screen and pop it back into yours. Just coming over now to pop that in. There's the code for you as well if you need to copy and paste that. Not a problem at all. I'm glad to have you along again. As the code is in the chat there, I'm just going to skip forward a couple of screens. If you've got any questions about anything Microsoft related, Microsoft has a dedicated education email address, so you can email them at educommunityuk@microsoft.com. Or if you'd like to contact Turn It On about anything at all, you can get hold of us at office@turniton.co.uk. We would dearly love to get your evaluation if you could before you leave. It's only a couple of star clicks and we'd like to get those from you, but I often get questions on these sessions. Well, how can we get to other sessions? If you'd like to join other training sessions, they're advertised on the Turn It On website. So if you go to www.turniton.co.uk/events, you can pick up events from there. Also, we offer lots of other different services which you can tap into, and those could be anything from technical support to bespoke CPD or training, and those are something that you can inquire about on the Office at Turn It On address. I'll just pop the evaluation form link in at the end so you can leave any evaluation. It could either be from this session or future sessions that you think you'd like to see. It might be Office 365 apps that you haven't yet seen us cover, or it might be for other courses that you've attended. So we'd be really, really pleased to get your evaluation. The evaluation form link is just in the chat there. Thank you to Tiana as well. She's got the link in there for the next session that's coming up, which from memory should be Minecraft Education Edition and how to use that in your lessons. And people often think of Minecraft as something that children play around with and it doesn't have any educational benefit. Well, I beg to differ, and we will look at how that can be achieved on that session. If you are joining us on that session, it's really beneficial if you could get Minecraft Education Edition installed on your computer, and then you'll be able to jump into it and use it as we cover that content. So I haven't got anything else that I need to share with you today, but I am going to remain here for a few minutes to answer any questions as people drop off. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming along today. I really appreciate the time that you've given, and it's been fabulous having you along. If you want to ask me anything, please do so. But otherwise, have a great end to the day, and I will see some of you again on the next training session.